What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Who Wants to Brawl YouTube channel. That is not a question, that is a statement. My name is Who, and I'm letting you know I want to brawl. Here, we're all about the Magic format Brawl, specifically in regards to Magic Arena, so we don't have to worry about budget, we only have to worry about wildcards.
This episode is a new deck tech. On these episodes, I go over a new Brawl commander and walk you through my ideas and strategies of how best to build this commander. So our first and primary strategy is going to be snow permanents. Both sides of Jorn deal with snow permanents, so we want to have a lot of those in order to utilize both sides. Our first snow permanent is going to be Icebind Pillar. It's a 3-mana artifact that for 1 snow mana and tapping it, we can tap target artifact or creature. With Jorn untapping all of our snow permanents, this essentially can tap down a blocker our opponent has and then turn around on the next turn and tap down a creature. Or tap down 2 blockers if we really need to get in that damage. This is a versatile card and it's one of the best in the deck. And then Frost Augur is a 1-mana 1/2 that for a snow mana we can look at the top card of our library, and if it's a snow card we can put it into our hand. A nice early game card that probably will draw us cards over the course of a game. And then Bergstrider is just a fantastic snow payoff, being a 5-mana 4/4 that if we pay snow mana, which at 5 mana we're pretty much guaranteed to have snow mana pumped into it, we could tap a creature down for a turn. Ascendant Spirit is an interesting card with a really fun design. It's 1 blue for a 1/1, but for 2 snow mana, it becomes a 2/3 Spirit Warrior. And then for 3 mana, if it's a warrior, we put a flying counter on it and it becomes a Spirit Warrior Angel with base, power, and toughness 4/4. And then for 4 snow mana, if it's an angel, we put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. If we activate that last ability, the draw card trigger stacks. So if we activate this ability 2 times, we'll end up drawing 2 cards. Narfi Betrayer King is just a great snow creature payoff. It's 5 mana for a 4/3, but other snow and zombie creatures we control get +1/+1. And then for 3 snow mana, we can return it from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Priest of the Haunted Edge is a nice snow payoff and removal spell, being a 2-mana snow creature that's 0/4, but it taps and sacrifices to give a creature -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of snow lands we control. If we play Jorn as Caldering, we can keep bringing this back every turn and just absolutely overwhelm our opponents with removal. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if Draugr Necromancer is on the battlefield, a 4-mana 4/4, we can exile that creature with an ice counter, and then we may play cards with ice counters on them as long as Draugr Necromancer is on the battlefield, and we could spend snow mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those cards. And then More of the Frost is a slightly more expensive clone at 5 total mana. It's a legendary snow creature, but if it copies a creature, it's a snow creature in addition to its other types, and it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters. On the right board state, Icebreaker Kraken can be absolutely devastating. It is 12 mana for an 8/8, however its casting cost is reduced by 1 for each snow land we control, which is pretty much all of our lands. And when it enters the battlefield, creatures our opponents control don't untap during their next untap step. It is important to note that this does not tap the creature down. However, being a huge body and locking the creatures they attacked with down is devastating enough. And Replicating Ring is just a 3-mana rock, but it's also a snow rock, so it untaps with Jorn, which is good enough for us. And then Spirit of the Aldegard is a 4-mana 0/4 that when it enters the battlefield, we search our library for a snowland, put it into our hand, and then shuffle our library. It gets +1/+0 for each snow permanent we control. Our next strategy is removal. No deck is able to function without it. Jorn is no exception. So with that, let's see what our best options for removal are. Eliminate is a 2-mana instant that destroys a creature or planeswalker with CMC 3 or less. Binding of the Old Gods is a 4-mana saga that Chapter 1 destroys any permanent our opponent controls. That type of versatility is invaluable. Then we have Blizzard Brawl, which is a 1-green fight spell, but if we control 3 or more snow permanents when it happens, the creature we control gets +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. Elspeth's Nightmare is probably my favorite removal in Brawl right now. It is an enchantment saga that Chapter 1 destroys a creature with power 2 or less that our opponent controls. Chapter 2 has our opponent reveal their hand, discard a non-creature, non-land card, and then Chapter 3 exiles their graveyard. Feed the Swarm is a 2-mana sorcery that destroys a creature or enchantment, and we lose life equal to its CMC. Most of the time we blow up a creature, but being able to blow up an enchantment, like a Sika, can have immeasurable value when we need it. And then Poison the Cup is just an efficient removal spell. It's 3 mana to destroy a creature, and then if it was foretold, we scry 2, and we can foretell it for 2 mana. Brazen Borrower is a 3-mana 3/1 flash flyer, but it has an adventure. For 2 mana, we can bounce any permanent our opponent controls. Good for a nice tempo hit. Blood on the Snow is a 6-mana sorcery that we can destroy all creatures or planeswalkers, and then bring a creature we control from our graveyard to the battlefield, equal to the amount of snow mana we pump into this, usually about 5 or 6, which takes care of just about every creature in our deck. For those that watch my channel, we have Wilt again. I just think it's the most versatile card in Brawl right now, particularly for removal, and should be an auto-include in every green deck. Mystical Dispute is a great counterspell, particularly when countering a blue spell, as it becomes only 1 mana if it targets a blue spell. Otherwise, it's a 3-mana counterspell, unless our opponent pays 3 mana. Saw It Coming is a nice card to foretell in the early game and then use it to blow out our opponents in the later game as a 2-mana counterspell. It's easy to hold that up, especially if you're holding up a card like Sublime Epiphany as well, which is a 6-mana instant that we can counter a spell, counter an activated ability, bounce a permanent, create a token that's a copy of one of our creatures, and draw a card. And we can do any combination of those. It's a lot of mana, but Sublime Epiphany is one of the best cards in Brawl. The final part of the deck we're going to talk about today is the utility cards. These are cards that don't necessarily fit with the theme of the deck, particularly snow in this case, though some might, but these are cards that help flush out the weaknesses of the deck and make it run more efficient, more smooth, and a little bit stronger. Our first utility piece is Arcane Signet. It's a 2-mana artifact, taps to add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, just a Brawl staple. Not much else needed to be said about it. And then we have Crashing Drawbridge, which is 2 mana for an 0/4 artifact creature that has tap. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. This is one of the most efficient haste enablers in Brawl at the moment, and the only one in our colors. And then we have Sculptor of Winter, which is 1 in the green for a 2/2 that taps to untap a snowland. We're running as many snowlands as possible to maximize Jorn's ability, so this almost always helps us ramp and helps us get a little bit more use out of those snowlands. And then we have Alrund's Epiphany, which is 5 blue for sorcery that we create 2 1/1 flyers and then take an extra turn after this. But we can foretell it for 2 mana and then cast it for 4 blue. With Jorn untapping our stuff, or Caldering allowing us to play snow permanents from our graveyard, taking an extra turn can be absolutely devastating. You know, more than it normally is. And then Cultivate is just an efficient ramp spell, being 3 mana for a sorcery that we search our library for 2 lands, put 1 of them in our hand, 1 onto the battlefield tap. And then Questing Beast is one of the most efficient creatures in all of Brawl. It's 4 mana for a 4/4, Vigilance, Haste, Death Touch. Combat damage cannot be prevented. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And when it deals damage to a player, it deals that much damage to a planeswalker that player controls. Not much in the way of explanation as to why Questing Beast is in the deck. Sometimes you just gotta run a great creature instead of something that synergizes with your commander. And here, that's what we have. Magic is all about 2-for-1s, And I always love creatures that counter a spell, and that's what we have here in Voracious Greatshark. Being a 5/4 flash is pretty nice as well. Graven Lore happens to be a snow payoff as well, being a strictly better Jace's Ingenuity. At 5 mana instant, we get to Scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana put into it, and then we draw 3 cards. Hagra Mauling is a great removal spell because primarily it's attached to a land. And when a card is banned in just about every format other than the format you're playing, it's probably a good card and should definitely be considered for your deck. So we're going to put Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, in our deck. And then the 3 Seasons is a 2-mana enchantment, Saga, that we mill some cards, and then we return 2 snow cards from our graveyard to our hand, and then we shuffle 3 cards from each library into their owner's graveyard. So we can hate on our opponent's graveyard if they're reanimating things. We can get stuff back from our graveyard. This is an overall versatile card and works wonders in our deck. And finally, we need to put some lands in our deck. This is a tricky deck to figure out the mana base for. We want to have a lot of snow lands, but it's also a 3-color deck, so we need to have the right fixing to go along with the snow lands. We don't want to have too much fixing that isn't snow lands, because then we don't get the untap out of Jorn. So with that, let's figure out what we can do. Command Tower and Zagath Triome each tap for all 3 of our colors, while Evolving Wilds and Fabled Passage can each go get the basic land that we need at the time. Ice Tunnel, Rimewood Falls, and Woodland Chasm are each lands that tap for either or of 2 different types of mana, and they also come with basic land types, so with Binding of the Gods, we can get these lands that are forests. Shimmerdrift Vale allows us to choose whatever color we need at the time we need it, and it taps for that mana. And Faceless Haven is just a great snow mana payoff, being a manland that we can animate for 3 snow mana. And we're going to round out with 6 snow-covered islands, 4 snow-covered swamps, and 5 snow-covered forests. So that does it for Jorn. What do you think? Change the deck? Do you like the way the deck runs as it is? Give it a play. I think it's a fun and unique commander that allows some pretty interesting gameplay, and I've enjoyed it. So let me know what you think in the comments. And that does it for this video. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Share with a friend to help the channel grow. Hit that bell icon to make sure you get notifications about new videos to make sure you don't miss anything. I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Rob Slota for making the Who Wants to Brawl logo. He's a tattoo artist, and you can check out his Instagram by following the link in the show notes below. You can email me at whowantstobrawl@gmail.com. My Twitter is @brawlwho. I also stream on Magic Arena at twitch.tv/whowantstobrawl. Check me out on Sundays at 11 in the morning, where I stream last week or next week's deck tech. On Mondays, I stream random decks. Sometimes I do Brawl, sometimes I'll even throw in a draft. I also stream a random day of the week, or at least I try to. This is Random Games. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll let you know when I'm going to play ahead of time and what I'm going to play ahead of time. But for now, this is Who letting you know I no longer want to brawl. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.